Right. Hello and welcome to Live Coding Happy Hour for November 22nd, 2019. I'm Dave Slusher, joined with Andrew Barnes and Chuck Tomasi. We are going to do some fun stuff today. We're going to work on Twitter integration. It is going to be like a lot of the ones in poker, we have a thing called polarizing the range. It's never going to be mediocre. It's going to be great or it's going to be a dumpster fire. And we kind of don't care which. So with that, I'd like to welcome my colleagues, and let's go around the horn and introduce ourselves, starting with Andrew.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Andrew Barnes, developer advocate at ServiceNow. I've been here over a year at ServiceNow. Been working with the platform for over 5 years. It's an enterprise architect and specialize in doing custom applications, integrations, updates at management, dev at scale, all kinds of fun stuff. Super excited to get into this today, and great to be here with Chuck.
Oh, that's the segue.
That was the cue.
It was.
I blame everything on jet lag right now. Hi, my name is Chuck Tomasi, Senior TPMM at ServiceNow on the platform team. I have been at ServiceNow for about 9.5 years, and closer to 11 as a customer. What year is it? I don't even know what day it is, so don't ask me. And coming up on 40 years of experience in the space. So I can't believe I've been writing code for that long. I feel like it's time to leave the stage at some point. My speciality closely aligned with Andrew and Dave in platform integrations, custom applications, and just having an all-around good time.
All right. And I'm Dave Slusher, also a developer advocate on the team with Andrew, and developer.servicenow.com. If you don't have your personal developer instance, why don't you have one? Go to developer.servicenow.com. Get yourself an instance. All right. Now let us go around the horn. I will freely admit I am not at all digging deep because I didn't really plan ahead, and we're drinking what's
in the fridge. All right.
Drinking what I got.
Today I've got a shock top Belgian white. That obviously clearly has some orange going on in it, which I'm excited about.
Shock top's always safe. I have what have I got? From Prescott Brewing here in Arizona, I have the Achocalypse Porter Stout. What is this? This is a Achocalypse Chocolate Porter. So I'm going dark and heavy today.
Dark and stormy there today.
Winter is coming. And all right, just from the first few sips, it feels like the ABV is pretty dang high.
I'm splitting the difference between you two guys. I got a Leinenkugel Vanilla Snowdrift Porter.
Those are good.
Snowdrift Vanilla Porter. I said it in the wrong order.
I take one of those any day.
It's a nice solid one from roughly your old stopping ground, right?
Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. Yep.
Yes. Yeah, and this is one of those ones when the weather gets a little colder. It's finally getting cold down here, and this time for one of these. All right.
Dave's sporting the new shirt.
Dave's sporting the new shirt. I was so excited. I had to go check my door to see if it was there because I wanted my Hacktoberfest shirt too. So if y'all were following along, October was Hacktoberfest, sponsored by DigitalOcean. If you do 4 PRs against public repos in GitHub and don't get them marked as spam, they send you a shirt. To promote collaboration and open source projects. We sponsored a few projects ourselves, and I know that Dave and I were both excited to get our shirts, and he won the race because I clearly did not, because I would be wearing it right now if I had. We had a lot of fun building spokes for Integration Hub and getting those. Have folks contribute to those as a group. We built what was it, 6
Yes.
spokes.
We had 6 spokes. 4 people qualified for the shirts, and this is, I think, one of the smarter ideas we've ever had is to sponsor a thing where DigitalOcean does the fulfillment of the swag.
And that's our 3rd year of engaging in a similar sort of alignment with the DigitalOcean's Hacktoberfest, and it was a lot of fun. Today we're going to be getting into doing a little Twitter integration. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. So I have a need to do some searching on Twitter, to search for particular keywords and then see how those posts are doing, retweets and likes, on the Twitter sphere. So I would like to do that. I mean, automation's my thing, so I would like to do that automagically. And we don't have a spoke that does that now. We've got a Twitter integration spoke, which we'll walk through and see what they have available and have jump started for us. But this is not an unusual use case where ServiceNow will be providing, a starter pack essentially of actions that you can do. The Twitter one provides just posting a tweet. That's what it does out of the box. But you may want to, have to do something more than that, and then you can carry on with the creating more actions for that spoke and enhance it and make it your own, and also share that back out to the community if it's possible at where you work, and the work that you're doing. So that's what we're going to get into today, is going through that. Is there anything
And
else?
Andrew, before you go,
yeah,
and let's also mention that one of the key things about this whole deal, why this is kind of important to use that reference, even though it doesn't do the thing you want and you want to extend from that, is that the Twitter authentication is using OAuth 1.0, which is not trivial to do. It's not a thing that you can just easily do.
Like if we
out of the
tried to
box,
do that
right?
on the show today, we would definitely fail.
Yes.
We would not successfully complete getting OAuth 1 done in one episode of this show.
I've attempted
Absolutely
that path
not.
numerous times and given up numerous times.
Yeah, there's not a, like in the credential, you can't say, okay, I want OAuth 2, I want OAuth 1. We don't even, like OAuth 1 support is not natively in there.
Right.
So, so this is a fairly regular use case where you'll have a spoke, and ServiceNow is really starting to generate a bunch of spokes and put them out through the store. And so they'll help you with, getting close. So getting that connection done and the base API pathing and some of the, generic things that you might need to do. But you're most likely as a developer going to need more than that. But this helps you get close. Like it raises, or rather lowers the bar for entry by providing some stuff for you up front. So let me go ahead and get our share on.
All right. Well, you're sharing. One of the reasons why like this is important to like our team is that social media activity is like a thing we measure, right? That's exactly what we're doing here. That's one of our KPIs, is like making sure that there is uptake of things out in the social sphere.
That is very true. So the first thing I'd like to do is just pull open the existing actions in the Twitter spoke, take a look at them and see what they've got going on here. So you'll see there's something interesting here in that if I go and try and, for example, right here, I did actually, do this earlier, which is I went and said, hey, let's go see what is in this Twitter spoke. And you'll see that it has tweet. And that's all that's available to me. But when I looked,
just send an outbound message, right?
And all this does is sends an outbound message. It can also send an attachment, or attachments
Nice.
with that message. And so when we go and take a look at actions, so we're in Flow Designer. We've been here many times before, but if you haven't been here before, this is Flow Designer. And you'll see here is that tweet one, but it actually relies on these other two to make it work. So let's dive into that just a little bit. So
this has a little bit about unusual architecture in this thing, in the way that it has basically like unpublished, like they're almost like private method. Yeah, these are like private method actions almost.
Interesting.
It's
they
an
are
unusual way of doing it.
So this is some new territory. I just opened this. I just installed this spoke today and poked around with it just long enough to tell whether or not I could do a show about it. So I didn't get very far, but I did, take a look at a little of this and was a little surprised. So we've got our two inputs from the action, And then what's interesting here in this script step that you'll see is what we're doing is we're actually invoking the other actions that you saw on the list.
From
so
the
this
Flow
one,
API.
for example,
Neat.
is invoking the upload media action. So it is calling this one. So you can see here it takes, and it is also a little strange to me, but it is taking and setting the API path here, as well as upload.json towards the end, in setting the connection alias and intaking an attachment. And then it is calling this script include here in our spoke, that's actually doing even more work for us. And then it is, for example, generating our authorization header from that OAuth handler and putting it into our outputs so that we can then use that. So you'll see we're putting these down here as strings, and then in our rest step, we're actually consuming those. So we've got our resource path here and our authorization header here. So we've got a script to prepare those from our script include, and this is called from the other action. It's not confusing at all yet.
Any idea why this construct rather than just stacking these steps up in a single action?
No idea.
I'm not sold on exactly why it is done this way by looking at it.
Could it possibly be the error handling? I don't know.
So it does sort of divide it up to allow for that, except for, we're not doing much other than calling an error handler for this method specifically. So we could have done that.
Why this isn't one action with all these script steps, with all these individual steps, I don't know.
The only thing I can think of is if those other actions were applicable to additional actions. You can think of them as functions in a sense.
And that may be, that could be something.
Maybe the long-term,
but I can't imagine,
future.
I can't imagine that upload media has anything that it would be reusable for other than sending a tweet.
Right. That's kind of where I'm going too.
It doesn't feel like a reusable concept for this particular API. There might be, if I was a Twitter expert, maybe I would know that, we want to use the upload media action in these 5 different ways. And that's why we wanted to genericize it. But just given the 3 actions we have, it's not obvious to me when I'm looking at it. So that is the upload media part. We do a little error handling. And then over here is after we've uploaded the media, then we move into the actually tweeting the message. And so we can open up that one here, which is, again, a little interesting on the setting of the resource path for the API to me, because we're not doing it in our connection and credentials aliasing. We're doing it here. So that's a little strange to me, and I'm not sure exactly why they're doing it this way.
That feels a little hard-coded.
But that is how it is. And so this is, we're roughly going to do something fairly similar to this action, which is we're going to, so let's dive into the APIs. So I have loaded up the Twitter API documentation. I've done a couple of the starter steps, which is I went to their quick start guide. I said, I want to do something like this premium 30-day API search. I did create a developer account. I did register an application. What I have not yet done is a developer environment setup. And I think I'm going to skip that for now because you can do 7-day API calls without needing that part.
Okay.
So here and there,
proof of concept.
Yeah, enough to do a proof of concept. Should be able to use this standard search API, which does the past 7 days, which is probably enough.
Keyword being probably.
Probably. So let us take a look to see what. So fortunately, this is the same API path. And 1.1 is also the one that we appear to be using here. 1.1.
That's 1.1. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're getting in fairly similar search and then tweets.json. So this is one of those cases where having those, the spoke already available to me, and I can look to see how they did it and extend it and emulate it with tweaked. This is helpful to us, right? Thank you for that sip. Yummy. All right, so I need to first create a connection. And in fact, I'm going to delete this one because I created that earlier and did it wrong. So I'm going to do it again. So we're going to get this part of it. So when you get one of these spokes, it doesn't have a credential already stored because that would be ServiceNow's credential and you don't want theirs. And they don't want you to have theirs. So you have to come to the provided credential alias here and create your own. So we're going to Twitter.
This is where we're going to need the shrubbery.
And we're going to save it. And then we're going to create our credential. Right. So we don't, so I'm going to get, so I went to the credential, hit new. And then one of the things you'll note is we actually have a very specific Twitter credential creation method here.
All right.
So I'm going to click on that. Now I'm actually going to pull it off the screen so we don't even need the shrubbery. And
I'm so ready. I'm going to put it on anyway because I feel like doing it.
Who is sad about the shrubbery? I'm not sad about the shrubbery.
I think it's funny, so I want to do it even if it's up.
I like to just say shrubbery occasionally.
Now it's the unnecessary shrubbery.
Yes, wholly unnecessary shrubbery. All right, so now I have pasted in my consumer key secret, access token, and access token secret, and this is going to be AJB's personal ones. So now I have a credential in my connection, and we could theoretically post a message to Twitter right now if that application I created actually was allowed to post tweets. I set it up in Twitter to not be able to do so. So
why is that?
Because I'm using this for read-only purposes.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to post any messages. I'm just consuming.
You don't want to accidentally, right? You don't want to accidentally pick the wrong thing in a flow and then be sending it from your personal account when you meant to send it from a different thing.
That is entirely correct. So this application, you denied it. Yeah, I denied it the ability.
That was in the OAuth when you were picking the OAuth permissions from the Twitter side. You specifically denied create and update.
Absolutely, right? Yes. So when I was creating that application in the Twitter side, it's got a configuration, and I have to note the steps to acquiring a Twitter application and developer account were actually really nice. Like they asked me reasonable questions, and I presume that someone at Twitter is looking at them. Like they actually wanted to know what you're going to do with these things and asked reasonable questions about it and how you're going to consume them and ask detail related to how much permissions you were going to grant or ask for from users. And so it got more granular if you wanted to say, ask users for permission to post as them. I'm not doing that, so I didn't have to answer those questions. But I did like their process. All right, so I've got my token in. I've got my secrets in, so I could acquire a token. But I need something that is actually going to be able to do a search. So we're going to come here, copy that, and we want something similar to this guy. So I want to copy him. Let's copy him. We are going to call this tweet search. Copy. All right. So I don't actually need message or media IDs. So I'm going to nuke that.
So Andrew, actually, that went. I didn't notice while that was happening. When you picked that, did you pick which scope that went, or did it automatically go to the same scope that you just had?
It is in the Twitter spoke.
Did you have the option of changing that?
I did.
Okay, and let's talk for a second about why one might change that, because like you conceivably may not want your customized action to live. You may want to have a separate scope that lives beside this thing, right?
Absolutely, you might want to. And in fact, I considered it when I did it, and I was like, whatever, it's fine. I'll just move forward. But I did consider that for a moment, that I might want to put it in the scope that I'm working in. But I kind of want them to be in the Twitter spoke so that all of the actions are together in my picker.
The downside being that does invoke some uncertainty for the future when this spoke changes, right? Hopefully it shouldn't
from the store, but
it will come from the store. I'm not 100% sure what happens when that comes from. It should be all right, but I can't guarantee that it would be all right.
So what will happen is if I update it from the store's version, so I take a new version of the spoke from the store, it's the same process as getting an upgrade to your instance. It's just limited to the spoke, which there'll be a upgrade history entry for it with, and if there was a conflict, it would skip the record and not update it because there's a conflict. And so I would need to review that. So that's a good thing to note, is if you have any store applications, so if you're, or even internal applications for that matter, from your internal repo, you need to review that upgrade history, because there will be skipped entries possible in there that you need to review, same as you do for upgrades. So not all the developers out there in the world know that that's a thing that they actually have to care about. So that's a good thing to ask and note. I don't think there'd be any conflict. I'm not sure on the naming convention for me adjusting this. So if ServiceNow came out with a tweet search action and they were the same name, I could presumably get a skipped entry. But I've never run into that use case either, for spokes in particular, but eventually someone will. So we've got the update resource that is copied from, and I wanted to see, they did put a slash in there. So I am going to as well, because I'm copying things. We want to use the same connection alias, which is fine. We are not using media IDs. And in fact, we're not even going to necessarily use a message. So we're going to adjust our inputs to ask for keyword.
And so when you did that credential, so you overrode the credential that was referenced from that alias. Is that right?
There wasn't a credential in there.
I got you. You created
you have to put one in. Yeah.
It comes with the alias, but no credential. And then it's kind of like an empty.
No connection and no credential was in there when I received it.
Okay.
Which is perfectly normal.
So I'm going to ask the user for a keyword, and then I'm going to take that keyword. I'm going to consume it here into my script. So I have to set the input variables, and then I don't need media IDs. What else did I not need?
Change line 3. You got inputs.message still.
So keyword message was one of the ones, so we don't need that. Let us tweak this to keyword, and we're going to change status to keyword.
That seems to be more logical. I'm not sure why the message became params.status. Oh, because it's a Twitter status that you're tweeting.
Mm-hmm. And the OAuth stuff shouldn't change very much. All right, so that is relatively similar. Now, what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to have to go look at this script include and tweak it so that I can handle the keyword parameters.
Mm-hmm.
So let's save this.
You might get lucky.
Yeah, and if it's doing some kind of just like key loop and does something and doesn't specifically call them out, that would be the best case, right?
That would be a lovely case. We are actually going to
the new VS Code extension.
Pull open VS Code extension. We're going to create a new project.
Is this the first use of it on Live Coding Happy Hour?
I believe it is.
Here, we'll give you one of these.
So if you're unaware, ServiceNow last month or this month, in the past 4 weeks, released
early November 2019.
You know the date?
I think it was the 8th, wasn't it?
I don't remember the date. Released a VS Code extension into the VS Code marketplace. And it is called, I don't even remember what it's called. They changed. I think it's just called ServiceNow.
I think it is.
I want to grab the Twitter spoke. So I'm going to choose to pull down a custom application, import existing, Twitter spoke. No.
Uh-oh.
Twitter spoke.
You in the right instance?
So it doesn't count as a custom application, apparently. So it's a store application because those are actually in a different table.
Spokes are in a different table.
No, store applications are in a different store than your own personal.
So you pulled the Twitter app down from the store. I thought that came from Share. Okay.
No,
my mistake. Yep.
Why are the credentials angry at me? Please don't be angry, VS Code. I'm trying to be your friend.
Oh, don't make us deploy the shrubbery.
Let's see. I want Twitter spoke, source, server, OAuth handler. Well, I don't know what those errors were, and I frankly don't care because I got what I wanted.
Your credentials are incorrect, but here you go.
It got the script include. So what I did was I saw that this is the spoke is a ServiceNow store app. And I said, well, I know this is a script include. Let's go pull that down into VS Code. So let's go take a look to see what we do when we're going to generate authorization header, because that's basically what we're using this for. Is we give it the alias, the resource, and the parameters, and we get back an authorization header and a body. All right, so let's take a look. Let's see what we do. Populate keys. All right, well, that's fun. Let's see what else we got in here. Get params. All right, cool. It gets them. So that means I can use them. And let's go find. That's getting our credentials.
Authorization header.
Here's our header.
Okay, so.
Right. Let's see where, for example, status is. Let's see how they're using that.
Let's initialize.
Nope. Is that? It's not in here. Okay.
What?
I
It
thought.
must just be one of many keys.
I don't know that it needs to know what your params are.
Message. No, it was doing status.
It was status. It probably doesn't care what's in params.
I
The
guess
question is
they're
more,
not leveraging that, and so maybe I don't have to either.
Well, if status was a special keyword to Twitter, then we'd also want to know, is keyword a special word that we need to pass?
In the body. So we're not doing anything special with status here. So that must mean it's either in the headers or the body.
Okay.
So where is prepare headers and body? Yeah, that's here. So that's getting the body part there, and that's off header. Okay.
Right.
So the body is getting set here. Get body.
Get body.
So let's look for get body.
Just goes through
and it says
the parameters.
Get the parameters.
Says
okay.
Key equals value.
Nice.
That is nicely generic.
Nicely genericized.
We don't have to worry.
I'm a fan of whoever.
Hopefully keyword is still something that serves Twitter.
Let's go look at Twitter and see what they need.
What do we need?
The parameters for the search term.
Right. The ServiceNow end of that in the script include is completely ambivalent as to what we actually send it.
We want to change it to Q, so it's probably.
So it looks like Q is the Q. Give us Q, please. All right.
That makes sense.
Query Q. I can dig it. So here, I will need this to be
params.q,
and that seems to be all I need to get that in the body. Well, that seems nice. But let's take a look. So we'll just, even though we don't need to write anything here, we're going to just pretend like we needed to. So you can see I have functions available to me here.
Complete.
I've got some IntelliSense available to me. So I can, for example, gs.warn, and you can see it's a method that, takes as string parameters. And so this is pretty nice. So we can take in an object, and a string into warn, which is pretty great. I'm digging it. I'm delighted that we have our own version. There are 4 other really great existing ones that the community has built out there.
Yep.
Including one that is in a browser extension. But we ServiceNow are providing one, and one of the interesting things that's not super obvious is your macros.
I didn't know
the
that.
macros from the instance you're connected to are available to you here. So your template macros are available to you here. And so it looks those up on your instance and pulls them down on an instance by instance basis.
Happy, happy, joy, joy.
So that is actually quite. See
this is where we rewind and go, what was I doing?
Yeah. So I'm slowly pulling back the Q, which is all right. So we're going to pass in the parameter Q with its value.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So that is actually pretty close to what we need on this then. So that.
Why don't you, all you really need to do is just, why don't you just rename step 2 and call it good?
Rename step 2 and call it. Oh, yes. I mean, I feel like search is.
What happens if you call that? I mean, it looks like
this is.
I mean, that
roughly,
body controls everything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready to hit test button.
Mm-hmm.
What's the worst that can happen? So we're going to search for ServiceNow dev program.
Ooh.
Run test.
It's taking a nice long time.
That was a nice long pause.
But not too long.
It allows you to get a nice string.
Uh-oh.
Invalid or expired token.
Uh-oh.
All right, I can live with that sort of error. Let's dig into it a little bit. So we've got our step here. The body is Q is ServiceNow Dev Program.
Looks good.
The resource path looks good.
Before we go too far on this, Andrew, why don't you send a test tweet from the other thing?
Because my auth can't.
Oh, that's
send
right.
a tweet.
That's right. I forgot that you can't.
Good catch. Trick question.
That is a really good try. But I can go get a token that could do that. So we could set up a second
app.
Yeah, the thing that I'm thinking about is that what we can't separate is something that you changed from the credential itself has a problem.
Right. Yeah, no, we can't easily do that. So the one thing that I am going to do is I'm going to pull this to the side and make sure that my apps, so if y'all could fill some air for me, I'm going to make sure my apps, the token order I put them in was actually the token order I stored them in.
Okay. And one of the problems, like if this were a platform supported thing, like if it were OAuth 2, we would actually be able to look at the token. We would have a little more access to the machinery, right? You would be able to go and have your credential and do the refresh token, and you would see right there whether it worked or not. And because of the fact that we're kind of doing everything in script, or everything in that script include, and it just makes everything a little bit more difficult. And that's kind of what we're seeing here, right? Is that Andrew?
It does make it a little more difficult.
Andrew, we don't have that side effect of, because that is one of the nice things about having that OAuth 2 supported, is that you can just say fetch, refresh token, you log in, immediately whether or not it worked. You're not, there's no question as to whether or not you have the right password or the right auth or anything like that.
It does look like I put them in the order that so what I wasn't sure was I had these 4 stored, and I wasn't sure that the way Twitter gave them to me was this order, and I didn't look. But I did.
How long do those access tokens live? Do you know? One that it gives you?
Oh, is it like one of those temporary 1-hour things?
They don't appear to give me information on that.
Yeah, it doesn't look like, because OAuth 2 has an expiry or a refresh on it.
Yeah.
These don't look like they do.
The only warning that it gives me is sometime next year, it won't show me my secret keys.
What?
I'll have to generate new ones. I mean, and I could regenerate some right now, but they do look correct. All right, first thing that we should do is go look to see if this error code gives us anything more informationally about Twitter itself. Right? So if 81 means something different than some other ones. And 81's not even on the list. Thanks. Thanks for that, Twitter. I'm appreciating you right now. 89, because I'm a bad reader. 89, invalid errors. Okay, so that's
what we saw anyway.
It gave me, which is not very.
If those two were separated, that would actually be a lot more helpful, because now what we don't know is the token set up correctly, or the token was set up correctly but it has since expired.
Well, I just got it today. It would be, within hours.
But
it's conceivable that it is expired, but
it seems crazy. This is what that OAuth 2 refresh token business is about, right? Is that when you do get the access token, some of them are short-lived. But the refresh token is long-lived and gets you the short-lived access token. And then this thing, like,
so it does, thankfully, obscure my keys and tokens. Well, thank you for that. I saw it in the script include where it did that, so I already knew that it would.
You were ready for that one.
I'm still glad that it did, but I did see that in the script include where it said it obscured those. Yeah, it's not really gonna give me much other than I could conceivably go and try this, with removing ServiceNow's part of this. So I could do a couple of things. I could try and Postman to do this, or I could just revoke and regenerate my secrets and put them in there again. Is one thing I could do. I could generate
a whole new alias,
a whole new OAuth that could do a post and just try that with the out of the box ones, just to see something work, and validate that there's not some other bug I'm running into. What do y'all think is the most reasonable next step for this point?
Well, we don't have a lot, like minus, we got to do some kind of backup, because minus something like that, there's not a lot of detail to go forward on this, right?
Yeah, it's your
kind of dead in the water. Token doesn't work. You've put in all the stuff. Like at this point, you don't really have any dial to turn.
Yeah.
On this path. Why don't we try? How long did it take to set up that?
The app is quick.
Okay.
So I can do that one variable at a time.
I can do that fairly quickly. So I can generate a new app right now.
All right. You want the strawberry back?
I'll leave it on. No, I'll leave it on the screen until it gives me tokens.
Okay.
Post as HAB. Post.
we have an interesting comment on YouTube while he does that.
The website. What is our interesting comment?
Okay, I'll read it out on the thing while you do this, since you've got a lot of typing to do. I fear Dave is being too systematic, asking to try the OOB tweet. While it might save time, it borders on violating LCHH spirit of flying upside down and backwards until you crash into the solution. So the problem I have with that is I don't want to romanticize the failure aspect of it. While we aren't scared of it, we also aren't we don't long for it either. I mean, more than anything, really, the spirit of this entire enterprise was just to show what the job looks like, right? And because sometimes the job, I mean, this is what the job looks like. It's those days when you just can't even,
when like, I'm going to back up credentials.
Until I can make, I'm just going to back up to the simplest thing where I can make one thing work. I've totally had those days. Like, what is the most rudimentary thing I can see move across the wire?
All right. What am I doing that it is angry with me?
Have you reached 100 characters in that box?
I believe I did.
Between 10 and 200. Okay. Hover over the little 2.
Chuck likes to make tweets. Yeah.
Hover over the little 2 that just refreshed down there in the text box.
Oh, this is Grammarly. This isn't Twitter.
Oh, okay.
Though that is annoying.
Telling you something.
Yeah.
Okay. It's red. Why is it red?
Why is this red up here? I don't understand.
This field is visible. Twitter inflows. Help us understand how your app will be used.
How about?
Same as before.
All right. Let's look.
Callback.
You're missing the callback, Carl.
It's required.
It's required, but doesn't have
any.
Right. It has no red, but that thing does.
All right. I have no sensitive information. Lovely. Post things is me. Yes.
We need shrubbery yet?
And as soon as I switch to keys and tokens, I'll need some shrubbery. So,
all right, you ready?
What I didn't see this time was which permissions.
Oh, it's to the right.
Read and write.
It actually needs direct messages. All right. Shrubbery it up.
Boom. There we go.
Thank you for the shrubbery.
If there's a bustle in your hedgerow, don't be alarmed now. It's just Andrew doing his credentials.
Just credential things. New credential.
You know, it's good beer when we start singing.
All right. Consumer key in.
The screen makes me feel like we've been put in timeout. Stare at the bushes.
Stare at the bushes. Ooh.
Okay, make sure you got them in the right order. Consumer key, consumer secret.
I am making sure I got them in the right order this time.
Mother's maiden name.
Cookie Monster. And submit.
Who told you my mother's maiden name?
And save. All right, shrubbery can come down.
All right.
Get out the pruning shears.
Now, one thing that was troubling me the first time I created this was there's a credential alias picker here.
Yes,
that's not
I
required.
Saw that.
But also
it doesn't include the Twitter.
Doesn't include the Twitter one.
I would expect a reference field to the parent record.
And that
kind of
is making me feel a little unconfident in that.
So now let's go ahead and put that on the
let's give it a whirl.
Yeah.
So we are on the tweet message. We should be able to just say test and give it a message.
Oh, okay.
We are posting from, so it's now to Twitter.
Is this now? But when you, and I wasn't paying attention. I was looking at some OBS stuff. You changed your Twitter credential alias to point to the new one, right?
I did.
Okay.
So run test, and let's see what we get.
Mm-hmm.
Could not authenticate me.
You. Failure.
Well, it failed in a slightly different way.
So, consumer key.
Body. So the body looks fine. It looks fine. So we just get
error code
32.
Error code 32.
Could not authenticate you.
That's a different message.
That is different than
so expired or invalid.
Yeah. So now we should go maybe and look at the Twitter API again here and take a look at sending a tweet and see if there's anything that jumps out of us. Post. Guide. Well, okay. That's not super useful. All right. How about post a tweet? I guess status is what?
Yeah, we were doing status / tweet.json. Where's any of that stuff? Am I looking at this wrong?
Let's see what it says it's using. Statuses update. Okay. So statuses update is the right one.
Okay.
All right. So statuses update JSON. All right. What do you require, sir?
I require a status.
300 tweets. I don't think I have exceeded that.
Unless your retry policy went off the wall, but retry policy isn't on.
An example request. So we need our consumer key. Let's see how this compares to what we're sending it. Let's take a look at our headers. And none of these are going to look any better.
Yeah, that's where usually throw it into a beautifier.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to pull this one down. Let's split our screen just a little bit, as every developer has done in their life at some point. Make this guy just a
We should put a beautifier right there.
That would not be a horrible idea. And where was the example? It was further down, I think. Yeah, here we go. So let's see what we're sending over and what they're expecting. So we got OAuth consumer key, nonce, signature method, yeah, timestamp, sure, OAuth token, sure, OAuth version, one, OAuth signature, bam. That's looking like it should have worked roughly. This is when I do things like, which I don't feel like, yeah, we don't have time for that. But this is where I would take this or this and just plop my,
actual values in there.
Actual values in, and send that in.
Make sure it works from curl.
Just make sure that there's, if I can't take their example,
yep,
exactly, with the inserted tokens, then there's a whole different ball game of a problem.
That's usually what I do before I even started ServiceNow, is just build it up little by little, reduce the variables, and say,
that is what I typically do. Yeah. But in this case, I was hoping that getting the Twitter spoke would, accelerate me towards not having to do that.
So we're caught by credentials.
And it's worth noting, like, anytime I have ever had to use an API where you have to sign the request, it has always been troublesome. I want to say the only time
that's unreasonable.
Because we had those things where like some of the Amazon APIs do that thing, and we were trying to do that. What was it? Sift. Like years ago in the travel tracker, I was trying to use Sift as parsing the itineraries, and it had that same style as AWS, and I could never get that thing worked. I could never get it signed correctly in a way it would recognize. The JWT with Box, like, I don't know, like 6 months ago, was the first time I've ever successfully signed an API request ever in the last 6 years. So
it's almost like they don't want you using their API.
Signing is always a special beast, right? No matter the form it's in, signing is always a pain. So I think this is a reasonable wrapping up point, because we're going to have to go down a rabbit hole at this point with just figuring out if there's something wrong with my tokens or my authorization from the Twitter side, that I haven't clicked the right button in Twitter to allow my app to, to send. So I need to separate from ServiceNow and Twitter and figure out which side I need to attack.
One, Andrew, one extremely dumb question. On the whatever sandboxy thing you did with the Twitter development,
yep,
is there an approval thing that maybe hasn't gone through?
That is entirely possible, and in fact, but where was I? Probably the easiest way to get there is here to this. So it doesn't seem to have a status other than.
But I'm wondering, like, if your account as a whole, like,
might not be.
I don't know if they're like, it's not impossible. It would be a little bit weird, but it might not be impossible if there's like a person that has to say,
this is okay.
You are okay to have a developer account at all.
Right. So
I could see, particularly with Twitter, I could see a problem with pop-up fly-by-night accounts that are created.
Absolutely.
Dump a bunch of spam and move on. So then maybe there either is a delay or something.
And that's why I want to separate whether or not this is, ServiceNow or Twitter. Like once I figure out which side it's on, then I can more targetedly attack what I'm going to do next. So
I'll tell you what I might consider is if there is a Node app for posting via the same Twitter API.
Oh yeah.
Stick those credentials in that thing and see, does Node do it?
Absolutely. So that's how I'm going to go about separating it is either if there's Twitter, some of the API documentation pages have, try it now. And Google's usually pretty good about that. Having, here, run this in the browser right here. So I will see which side it's on and then attack it from there. I hope that it's on the Twitter side and I just clicked the thing wrong there because if it's on the ServiceNow side, I don't know what it could be because this is a straight from the store spoke that as soon as you put in the credentials, it should be able to post a tweet. Like that's its job. So I hope that it's a failing on my part and not on the spoke itself.
Yep.
So that was useful to show how we got from or can extend a spoke that you get from somewhere else, be it the store or a partner or a coworker, right? Is if they've already done, if they've already done part of the integration step for you, usually it lowers the bar for getting you in, but that does not make, for example, in our case, which what I think it is I did something wrong setting up my app such that it can't post messages. I hope that that's what the problem is, and I will figure that out shortly because I'm gonna hack on this some more. But that
there's actually
how we.
I'm sorry, Andrew. There is actually one other path because we were looking at this and fairly recently, and I think probably recently enough that it has not been incorporated into the spoke. Is it looks like Twitter has added an OAuth 2. We just saw that shortly before we went live.
Absolutely,
it is absolutely not inconceivable that it might be easier to
implement 2.0.
Implement 2.0 then try to rectify the existing 1.0.
Absolutely could be. And if I'm going to look through their documentation and see how straightforward their OAuth 2 implementation is. And if it is straightforward, then I will absolutely just go do that because I would prefer OAuth 2 method because I understand it. And OAuth 1 is, though I have used it for a long time, still remains even more wonky than OAuth 2.
That's saying something.
So that was fun and very useful.
So
to the beer rating.
Yes, go ahead, Andrew.
My shock top is a very solid Belgian white, and it does suffer from the non-success syndrome, so it's a 375.
Oh. So close to that 4.
So close.
It was teetering. I'm giving the Prescott Brewing a Chocolips chocolate porter. You know what? I looked up on Untapped, and I've had this before. The little green corner icon thing was sitting there and went, "Oh, you've had this before." I said, "Oh, curious. What did I give it last time?"
Did you rate it before you looked in your mind?
Yes, I did. And I rated it the same, 4 1/4.
All right. And my Leinekugel Snowdrift Vanilla Porter, I'll give it a 375. It's solid. It's not exciting, but it's always there for me. So there you go. All right. And with that, we have one more tiny bit of business, which is this is my last show as a member of this team because starting Monday, I am moving from the developer program into the integration hub team. So I'm going to be doing the same kind of stuff, the same that I've been doing for the last 4 years, but I'm actually going to be in the Integration Hub team. So I'm going to be doing it specifically around Integration Hub and specifically around spokes. Like that is the majority of my focus for as long as we have planned out anything is making sure that the documentation for creating spokes and making sure that the resources people have are up to snuff. I'm going to actually go through as if I were a partner implementing a spoke from just the resources we give them. And if I can't do it, then we're going to fix whatever there. So I'm going to basically torture test all our resources and see how that works. And as a side effect, I'm going to be building spokes. So there's IBM Big Fix is going to be the one I start working on Monday. So there you go.
You're still going to be part of Live Coding Happy Hour, though.
I will be probably
As
not every time.
like...
Not every time, but I will be. I'll be on the bench. So,
all right.
So I'm available to be called into the game when you need it.
Yeah, we want to thank you, Dave. You've been a great teammate this past year. It's been really exciting working with you, and you have started developer relations in product here at ServiceNow. So 4 years doing this role, and I really appreciate what you've done for the community. And we, as we said, we'll have you back on the show as a reoccurring guest. But the new teammate will, and I will continue on with what you and Josh started with this show, and we'll certainly wish you well. And please, anyone out there, reach out, social media, say thank you to Dave because he's awesome. He's not going away. He's just gonna hone in specifically on Integration Hub. So we'll still be hearing from you plenty out in the developer community, but focused in just on one thing. Some days I think, well, the platform is awfully big, and that sounds like a partial vacation some days.
I'm telling you, it feels like one to me. It's like, oh my God, I don't have to think about everything. I just have to think about this one thing. Fantastic.
Just get really expert at one thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And thank you, gentlemen. And we will see everybody
have a great
next
weekend.
time.
Bye.